Man City got another win at home to a feisty kind of like this was a violent game almost. They brought the hatchets for sure. That is for sure, man. Um, unfortunate for Rodri, but where do you want to start? I didn't watch all of this game. I watched a little bit.
I did. So first of all, like I give Forrest a lot of credit. They played and they said, "Hey, we're coming to you." Um, a lot of fouls were not called, which is fine because it was consistent across the board. It wasn't like the ref was not calling fouls on one side and then calling the other. He wasn't calling nothing. And so, with that, then you just kind of have to. I mean, yes, you say protect my players, but at the same time, at least he was consistent on that end, right? So I can't be mad at that. um, I'm being honest, I was never worried about City winning the game at all. They like you could see like the Foden goal. My love that guy, Carl Walker.
Oh, it's
Foden,
beautiful.
bow,
Absolutely beautiful.
bow, right? And but funny Foden was in the middle of the field for that. But anyways, point being, point
You
being
listening, Southgate?
that he was there. He was at the game.
He
He was
was,
at
that's
the
true.
game. Which and then the second goal where Holland scored the header. I think Holland could have probably had 3 in that game, but he's
Once
getting
again.
better. But I mean, I mean, there's one where there was like the commentator made a comment of, well, there was a gasp when he went up for the header, and it's just getting him back in sort of fashion. But the Rodri thing really changed something. But I actually Rodri lost his mind. The guy he had to say something about his mom, man. He had to be Zidane level because he ran up to him and he pushed him. And then now the funny thing is that the second push, he pushed high, but because he wasn't trying to choke him, he was going to push him again. But when you're mad and incensed and your hands push up, it was around his neck.
He put his
And
hands around his neck,
yeah,
even if
That
it
is
was for a split second. Even if it was
oh,
for
he
a
did.
split
He did.
second.
Yeah. No, no, no. He lost his mind there. And what was more confusing is Ederson literally went and was about to go on the same path no more than 5 minutes later. And I'm like, either the fix is in or they've lost their minds. Because
Yeah.
then when Grealish came on, Grealish did the same thing. And I'm like, have they lost it? But the thing about it is that as a City fan, and Jake, you asked the question. I think Patrick and X have also asked the question, like, what's the motivation? They give Pep easy, low hanging fruit every game for something, because this is an easy one. At hey man, get your stuff together.
Yeah.
Literally get it together. Because the funny thing is, you saw something from Pep when they switched, which a lot of City fans, I mean, they weren't confused, but they didn't like it. Like the first sub was taking Doku off, who was eating. Like he would have scored a goal if it was 11, right? Yeah, after you took Doku off, you took Alvarez off. And so at this point, and Alvarez was super effective. And a lot of fans were like, well, if you're gonna use an attacking player to press, it would make more sense to take Holland off and leave Alvarez on, because Alvarez would do the job better than Holland, right? Or more efficiently, because I wouldn't say better, more efficiently, because that's just his style of play. And so I think in that case, Pep understands sort of the ego side where Alvarez is a little more humble. So I think if he took Holland off, it would I think that would have optically, maybe sports psychology wise, probably been more damaging to the sort of overall cause, because Holland missed one when he had a chance to put us up 3-0, but that's whatever. But I mean, it is what it is. But then he put Calvin Phillips on to play with Nunez, and then he played 5 at the back, which was interesting because a lot of people are like, and I heard one commentary say, he didn't go for control then. He was going to defend. And so, I mean, I think I made a point last week where I said, I really trust the back line now. And I think it was really a good thing to play those guys together, especially when Rodri went out, because I think it creates the mentality of what the defenders now know they need to do going forward for the next couple of games. You set the standard of, hey, this guy that's in front of you that protects you is not going to be here. Kovacic might be in there, Nunez might be in there, Calvin Phillips might be in there, and this that you already see that they're not this guy. So I'm going to employ this to protect you, because I know you as a unit together can do this. And I liked that because what it necessarily does is the people who question, well, why do you have so many defenders? Well, clearly he's a soothsayer or a psychic because literally this situation was what played out. And I think because the guys are getting healthy, like Bernardo will be back, and Foden will probably get a lot more burn. Alvarez and Holland. So we're fine up front. We're fine in the back, and they're just figuring out how to make the midfield just stay cohesive and keep it fluid. And with that, you'll probably see a stylistic change, which I'm not saying it sort of arrogantly, but I think Pep likes these things because then it gives him a chance to change again. And so then you can move in front because I watched a couple of games and seen teams play just like City, obviously with players with different quality. But now you've just given him a chance to say, okay, now I have to play different. Now I have to prepare differently. Good. New challenge. I'm going to teach these guys how to play this new way. And then I have a feeling you're going to see a new tactic come from him. And this is where, while there's no greatest of all time in my opinion, but this guy is one of the greatest football minds that we've ever seen, and he's for sure one of the greatest of this generation. And I think this gave him a challenge that he's excited about. I mean, he made a comment about playing Newcastle, which you can't have a better game for him to be like good, a challenge on top of that, because Newcastle punched that, and I mean, it was the worst. Anyways, we'll get there too. We'll get there too. I think he likes the challenge, and I think he's gonna, because they did what they did. It gave him even more. I don't think he's gonna retire if the Prem keeps giving him games like this, man. But unhappy with Rodri losing it. But I mean, he's human, so I can respect that. As a supporter, I'm disappointed, and I think the team is gonna actually gel more because now you're gonna see other guys step up. And but I give Forest credit. They came at City, and hopefully the referee does call fouls in the future. But I appreciate the game because I mean, you guys know I love when teams play City because I just think it makes it more exciting because those guys like those games, and that's where I put my period.
Do you think that for me, both times y'all went down a man last season, the game was then even.
Yeah.
Y'all are so good that being down a man kind of evens the game out for most other teams. Uh, and so obviously when y'all scored the first time, I turned this game off because I immediately was like, I switched to Luton and Wolves because I knew there was a snowball's chance that Forest were going to come back, right? And so my question is, since I didn't watch the second half, do you think he just knew that there was no hope Forest were ever going to break you down? And so in order, game management, pure 100% game management, we have the quality defensively, and Forrest will never, ever break us down. So sure, you can have the ball. You can just do your thing. We're not going to take too many risks. We don't need to take risks. We got a 2-goal lead. We're good. We can just close the spaces down, stay tight, be disciplined, and not give anything. And y'all aren't going to be able to do a thing. You think that's kind of where it was coming from?
Well, I think he played Phillips. He took Doku off to put Phillips on to replace Rodri, and left Holland up top by himself. And so basically, if you go for like the back eight, it was kind of what they do anyways. And maybe I think it was about 5 to 10 minutes later, he brought on another defender because he just like, and Phillips got a lot of criticism in the game, but I mean, people. I'm not saying he was good or bad, but you're asking him to fill in for Rodri. He's never gonna. I mean, the boots are bigger than his body, right?
You could put two of them out there, and two Phillips wouldn't fill in for Rodri.
But in addition to that, you're asking him to fill in for Rodri and be a man down. You're not asking him to replace him with the same level of team where, City plays a numbers game. You're asking him to do it and you're down a man. Like I don't know what people wanted from him. Now he did have like maybe one or two chances where he either could have assisted or like created a big chance. But the guy hasn't played. So I don't know what you expect from him. But I do think I think Pep may give him the opportunity. And I'll put it like this. If he got 3 games, he probably gets some burn in these 3 games. This is his opportunity to kind of show his CV. And if he's unable to show his CV and progress as he should, or as Pep wants him to, I think January you see him leave.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. What'd you think of this one, Patrick?
Well, I watched a little bit of it. The Foden goal was fantastic. I want to kind of go back to something that Lewis said about Alvarez and Haaland. We know that Alvarez would press more, and he can score. But it's kind of that whole mentality that we just talked about with Arsenal. It's a killer mentality, right? So if you take your striker off or your number 9 and say, okay, we're down a man, we're just going to sit back and we're going to press and we're just going to just make sure we don't give up anything. But when you have Haaland still on, that gives the idea of like, we're down a man. We're still trying to score here. And, I think that also for the team makes him think, okay, we're not letting up no matter what. We're down to 10. Doesn't matter. We're still trying to get more. And again, that's what makes Pep just incredible in my mind. He knows the right buttons to push. He could have taken Haaland off, and Alvarez probably would have been a really good, player in that situation. But it's the mentality of it all, and especially after taking off Doku, who I thought was great again. Dude is just
it's not fair.
It's not fair. It really is unfair.
It's really not unfair because everyone had a chance to go get him.
And then Romelu Lukaku had to run his mouth, man.
Oh, how many wingers you need at Chelsea, man?
We'll talk about that in a minute.
Well, they need anyone. We'll get there.
We'll get there because I have some thoughts. Point taken. But that said, it was, to me, even though it was 10 men, it was a typical City performance. They, just kind of constricted the opponent and just played it out. And, in the long run, we'll probably not look back at this game and say, oh, that was a big point in the season for them, or, a big result in the season for them. But I think it is something that you can look back and say, okay, this is where City built just a little bit more onto the team and onto the season, and changed, some of those guys' mind put. Well, Calvin Phillips, for example, which I think we can all agree that Calvin Phillips got his big break because of Declan Rice in the what was it? 18? No, not 18 euros. 20 euros? 22, 20, yeah, 20 euros. I think we can all agree about that.
Sure.
But he's given him a chance. He's given him a chance to hey, prove something to me. And I didn't really watch him that much, especially after it looked like it was done and dusted and Clemson started playing. I'm just gonna be honest with y'all. I don't want to talk about that either. It's been a rough.
Your fandom is.
Hey, at least you took the lead back in the predictions table.
That's the only positive right now because the Panthers suck, Chelsea sucks, Clemson's not playing to its ability. It's
well, Clemson doesn't have a quarterback, man. That's true.
We have a quarterback. We don't have a kicker. There's a difference.
But the game shouldn't be that close where the kicker decides them.
We'll talk about that later. Anyways, my point being though is it's just again, it's mentality. You know, there are three things that I focus on in a game. What's the mentality? Can you break down a low block if you have to? Because that it really determines are you going to win or not, and how do you respond in moments where the game drastically changes, whether it's you go down a goal, whether it's you go down a man, how do you respond? And those are the things that I look for to see, is this an actually good team, or is this a team that is good when they're at full strength? And I think, and of course, we don't have these questions about City, but I think it was just another moment where it just reinforced just how freaking amazing Pep is as a manager. I mean, he lost his heart and soul in the midfield and said, okay, I'm going to take this guy off. I'm going to take, my two active guys off, in terms of Doku and Alvarez. I'm going to put Calvin Phillips on. We're going to be fine.
And Patrick, and you mentioned something about this, Jake, too, as well. It's pretty ruthless because Pep went right after him, too, in the presser. No, hey, man, you don't do that here. And this guy, it's considered a Ballon d'Or.
He won the Champions League.
But, even now, just looking at his season, looking where he's ascended to, people are like, hey, is he the best holding midfielder in the world? Pep is like, hey, man, he's not. Pep went straight at him because, it's accountability. And, it starts there. And so my thing is it's not about emulating him. It's about finding your way to let your people know that this is how you do things and that accountability matters. So when you show up, I need you to do all you're supposed to do to be the best version of you can be. And if the best version of you doesn't cut it on the team, then, hey, man, I wish you all the best. Do it somewhere else. But if the best version of you fits here, then you show that every time. Because if you don't, I'm going to make sure you know that, A, you weren't the best version of yourself. I'm not going to call you out your name. I'm not going to talk about your family. I'm going to talk about your performance in that moment and say, you know what? This overall thing I had for you, you got to earn it every single time.
I actually think this might be a good segue. I was reading something and somebody said, if Raheem Sterling was as good as he's made out to be, he would still be playing for Pep Guardiola. And it's true. If he was the talent that he is made out to be and he performed at the level that is expected of him consistently, he wouldn't be playing for Chelsea.
Well, there's two reasons, though. The first reason is, yes, that. But the second reason is of money. Because if he really wanted to be the best he went to Chelsea for money. Because City would have renewed him. He wasn't playing good at City for the 2 seasons before he went to Chelsea. He was nowhere near where he needed to be.
Right.
Like he wasn't good enough. And people were like, City fans were like, why are you starting this guy? Right? He couldn't finish anything. And so you had Jesus and Sterling there, and you're like, hey, man, why are these guys not finishing? You should be better than this. And Pep kept giving them chances. But these guys wanted money. Now, Jesus is different because I don't think Jesus left for money. I think he would have stayed, but I think that Haaland was coming in. And if I'm Jesus, I can't be in the club this long. And then you just bring in another guy, even though it's Haaland. But still, he would have never challenged him. And Alvarez would have supplanted him as well. So with that being said, Sterling, on the other hand, Sterling literally fit what Pep was doing. And he didn't get better. He regressed. And at that point, he's like, hey, I'm not getting playing time. If you stayed and you took less money, he would still be in City today. He would still be there. And
Doku probably wouldn't come in. Wouldn't come in.
No reason to go get him. Sterling is faster than him and more physical than him. And in Pep's system, he clearly can perform. But you know what? You wanted to go for money, which I don't knock. I don't knock it at all, even though you're rich, right? Like he's rich already. But a new challenge. He didn't like the challenge that was being placed upon him at City, which is insane because Foden wasn't going to be better than him. Foden was the heir apparent to Silva and De Bruyne. Jack Grealish wasn't going to take his spot. That Mahrez wasn't taking his spot. Like Pep literally showed he was one of his favorites. And Pep was like taking care of him.
Yeah, it definitely calls back to what we were saying about personal mentality as well. And it also calls back to starts at the top. And Pep Guardiola definitely has the killer mentality.